Right. Thanks everyone for joining us for our next session. So in the next session, we are going to be having a moderated forum discussion on how do we build the digital economy through urban rejuvenation. So this session will be moderated by Professor Renato, and will also be joined by Professor Silvio. So if I can invite both of them to be on stage first, as I will introduce the rest of our speakers. All right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'd like to first invite Ms. Cha-ly Koh, right, the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Urbanmetry. Cha-ly was trained in city planning at MIT, Cambridge, USA. Her mission as the founder and CEO of Urbanmetry Sdn Bhd, a data company that cleans and analyzes large amounts of city data through its proprietary algorithms, is to revolutionize urban decision making by empowering urban dwellers, governments, corporations, city planners with data-driven insights. So please put your hand together to welcome Cha-ly. All right. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Khairil Anuar Sadat Salleh, or Sadat, the Chief Commercial Officer, Strategic Land and Investment at Malaysian Research Accelerator for Technology and Innovation, or more commonly known as MRANTI. Right, so he crafts investment strategies that seamlessly merge business growth, innovation, and real estate development. He also is responsible on helping MRANTI uphold responsible business practices and maintain its commitments to ecological balance and long-term sustainability. Now, finally, I would like to invite Daniel Lim, Director of Urban Mechanics at Think City. So he's a Director of Urban Mechanics and spearheads Think City's placemaking endeavors, right? With a decade of experience, he has been at the forefront of rejuvenation projects across Penang, Johor Bahru, and Kuala Lumpur through placemaking. So here we go. Here's our panelists, and I shall hand over to our moderator, Prof. Renato.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zhai. Thank you so much, everyone who came back from having great Malaysian food, which you said that you still wanted to try more, right? Yeah. Okay. So for this panel, there is Silvio is a multifaceted person with many dimensions of intelligence. And one of the things that he has been involved in Brazil has been with urban regeneration, of changing the hardware of a city in a way that it supports to run different types of software, software that's more knowledge intensive. And that experience of the Porto Digital, I think it resonates a lot with other fantastic colleagues here from Malaysia. They're also doing in different spheres. So in this panel, we want to connect more with the public policy and initiatives that are related to transformation of places where people live, that they connect that they can generate knowledge and also further promote well-being. So for that, we have with us Cha-ly Koh, we have Khairil, and we also have Daniel from different organizations. We'll get to know more about them, and then we are going to enter in a dialogue, really in an open conversation about the topics that are going to be addressed here. But I also will want to have pretty early on some Q&As. I think the audience will have a lot of things to ask. And if you guys hesitate for a second, I have a list of 10,000 questions, of which I generated 50 and ChatGPT the other 9,550. But I trust the human intelligence here in this auditorium. But let me start also for the benefit of the connections that we will have here. Perhaps Silvio, can you quickly, and that's what we can do with AIs, like summarize in 3 minutes the experience of Porto Digital? What is it? Why does it matter?
Yeah. Right. Porto Digital comes from an effort of academics, NGOs, and business people, and state, I think, state policymakers at the time when we started it in the year 2000, in the 2nd of February, maybe, exactly 2nd of February is 222. That is aimed at reviving basically the center of Recife, the inner city, Recife inner city. Recife is an old city. It's from 1537, and it used to be one of the richest places in all of the Americas. Famously invaded by the Dutch in the early 1600s because of sugar, and at some time in the mid 1600s, it had the largest GDP per capita anywhere in the world, from the accounts of the time. But that depended upon sugarcane. When sugarcane went south to better land and to large-scale farming, large-scale agriculture, of course, the economy of the entire region, not only Recife, but the capital cities around it, collapsed. And with that, the harbor of Recife, and with the harbor collapsing, as it happened already, has happened in major old cities all over, history, the center of Recife collapsed together. That took the best part of 50 years. So when we got there in the early 2000s, it was derelict, decaying, and had been invaded basically by, I wouldn't say, the name would be bad people. Or not necessarily bad people. People are not necessarily bad, but people that wanted or had as the only alternative of living, doing bad things. And we invaded the center of town, literally, with the purpose of creating tech companies and tech-related companies, filmmaking companies, gaming companies, design companies, to bring people downtown to work in Recife and later on to live in Recife. So we started with the idea of a local system of innovation. That's a territory. That's the island in the center of Recife. You can look it up in the map. Just go there and say RECIFE, Brazil. You're going to see that right in the middle of the city, by the sea, there is an island. A small island connected to the continent by 4 bridges. We started there. So we started there in the year 2000 with 5 companies and 46 people, with this idea of this is not going to be a tech park. It's going to be a local innovation system that's open within the city, and the flows of the city go through it. We need restaurants, we need law offices, we need gyms, we need bars, we need people to live in here. We want to basically reboot that urban fabric that had died over there. Then, over the last 23 years, we've been running for 23 years with a long-term plan of 50 years. This territory with its institutions and a number of 5 organizations that work together to reboot that part of the city, we have come to 360 businesses employing basically 18,000 people and grossing yearly, as of 2022, 5 billion ringgit. The plan, of course, is that in 2050, we're going to be 50,000 people and are going to be the biggest economic cluster of Recife's economy, which is one of the 10 biggest towns in Brazil. It's about the size of KL. That's it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Silvio. So let's hear now from Cha-ly Koh. You are the founder of Urbanmetry. You did your master's at MIT. Fantastic place, by the way. And you applied your data knowledge to urban issues, urban questions that can also monetize different aspects and get to know more what make it a special certain place, what kind of a public parks, public utilities can drive value in a city. Can you talk more about that and also connect with this vision about rejuvenating a city and by deploying technology?
So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited because that talk was super inspiring. And I actually feel like you've done most of the work for what I'm going to say right now. So I'm going to refer to it. So the first thing that Professor was just saying was digitizing reality, right? So digitization of reality is quite simple in a way for what we do, but it was a bulk of what we did. So our mission at Urbanmetry was to digitize all the physical assets that you have in the city. So in emerging markets, like Renato was saying, people kind of just leave us alone because it's hard, right? So Urbanmetry's goal is to bring digitization of the city data to emerging markets. So that's number one. That's our step one, okay? Step two, then we needed to showcase how can we do this and digitize the intelligence of the city, right? Why is being near a park good? Why is cafes opening near your neighborhood a good thing? Why is certain demographics desirable as a mix to certain neighborhoods? So digitizing the intelligence was number two, step two. And at Urbanmetry, we are really proud that we have already arrived at stage 3, which is converting stage 1 and stage 2 to AI, right? So we have built AI and intelligence, combining with intelligence, to augment and assist our key decision makers. So our key decision makers here, government, property developers, which was surprisingly our first supporters. A lot of people don't believe me, they are. Banks, and we augment and the data into an intelligence system that's now powered by the data we feed it to help them with decision making, right? So these are the things that we have been doing here at Urbanmetry. We're very excited about it. So I love the fact that you did this whole circle, like we digitized the data, the language models, we do intelligence into a digital space, now we have AI. And then now you're bringing it back to reality, like to the physical space, right? We're doing almost the same thing in a way. We're trying to use the AI that we have built to now intervene back into the physical space, extracting the value that we have sort of metaphysized back into reality, and how we can make more efficient decisions in order to harvest the value that we can get out of these networks digitally. So I'm trying to use your language because I was so inspired. But in essence, is exactly where we should be going to reduce things like latency, inefficiency, and how we can interact. Because, in my opinion, cities are the most expensive environmentally for the human ecosystem, right? So if we can reduce the cost environmentally and how we build our cities and how we interact in the reality, that would have a major impact towards climate change.
Okay, fantastic, Cha-ly. Now let me hear from Khairil. You, Chief Commercial Officer at MRANTI. MRANTI is one of a leading tech park of Malaysia. Can you talk more about the role of MRANTI in Malaysia's or Kuala Lumpur's innovation ecosystem? What it has been the vision in how you try to align that vision with a broader development of Malaysia's economy?
Right, so thank you. So firstly, I would like to thank ASB for the opportunity of being here together with Professor Silvio. So I play music, so for those of you who play music, you will know how I feel now. It's like performing live on stage with Metallica or Deep Purple or those kind of songs. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to be here. All right, so getting back to your question just now. So a little bit of a background. So MRANTI was actually established in 2021. It is a company or an agency owned by the federal government of Malaysia, number one. So we are carrying dual mandate. Number one is to accelerate the technology and innovation into commercialization. To make it simpler, we know for a fact that nowadays a lot of good and great ideas got stuck in someone's heads, in education institution, right, or in startups. So we do not want all these good ideas to die. So our main role here first is to bring all these ideas into commercialization, to walk the talk and to make things happen. That's number one. And in doing so, we need a space to do that, all right? So looking from that perspective, we were given another mandate by the government to basically rejuvenate MRANTI Park. So MRANTI Park is basically a new name for Technology Park Malaysia, which has been in existence since 1996. So it is an old tech park, all right? So it is really spot on today that we are, to this very day, we are rejuvenating the park, right? So I think we came in about almost 2 years ago, so we learned a lot. We have a long list of lessons learned that we're going to carry forward, all right? So we're going to rejuvenate the park into a real tech park in the future. So now, how MRANTI is actually kind of like doing this in a bigger context of Malaysian economy, especially in digital economy, right? So first, in commercializing all these ideas, all right? So we're going to shift at least a bit, all right, the fabric or the structure of the economy, right, from the kind of like manufacturing base into digital economy, all right, by accelerating the commercialization of this tech and innovation, right? That's number one. So, and number two, we are looking at not just, we're not looking at the whole on all technologies, no. We are looking at specific technologies that can really contribute to the very fundamental of Malaysian economy. All right, so in doing this, we're starting from the tech companies, universities, all the publics and whatnot, to make sure that all these good ideas will not die along the way, all right? And we are going to do it here in MRANTI Park, all right? So real things are happening. So we're not just kind of like, putting up policies, putting up plans, but we have now a real place where we can grow them, where the digital economy can actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Khairil, let me follow up also to the benefit of the audience. How many companies are in MRANTI right now, and what is their company size, either in revenues or in number of employees?
Right, so in MRANTI Park now, so the business model that we apply today, right, I think easily for the past 20 years, number one, we subdivide the land. It's a 700 acres of tech park. So first we subdivide the land, and some companies, big companies, they will come in and lease the land from us. That's number one. So in the like of, and for this, we have about 47 companies. All right, they are mainly public listed companies, just like Astro, and one of them is Asia Pacific Universities, Binasat, those big companies. So I think on the kind of like, this is kind of like multi-million-dollar kind of company. That's one. And number two, we have our own building where we rent it out to tenants. So we have about 157 tenants so far. So coming back to that, so the company size that we have in the park now, ranging from the startup, really small one, maybe 2 or 3 staff, into kind of like hundreds of staff, just like Astro and Binasat. So looking at the kind of like market size, or company size of maybe from a valuation of few hundred ringgit of company size to a multi-million-dollar company size.
So if I were to plot company size on that dimension, would I get a bimodal distribution of some small number of small companies here and with employees, and then not a lot in the middle, and then a lot as big ones? Is that the reality today, or is it linear? So you have small companies, and you have proportionally same number of mid-sized companies and big companies?
Okay, so looking at that, right, so now we are changing the structure, or rather the fabric, on how the park should be run and managed, right? I think easily for the past 20 years, the park has been run or operated more in a kind of like real estate kind of like approach, where those who have money, who really like to be there, regardless of what you are doing, you can be there. So as you can see now, we can't really see a good cluster of tech being developed there. So before the pandemic, companies is coming in, no control, no proper plan whatsoever. Now we are changing that. We are going to cluster them accordingly to the segment of tech, and we are going to have a good balance between the company size, right? We do not want the tech park to be dominated by large companies or MNCs. We would like to have a fair share of small companies as well, startups, right? even education-based kind of like entities. So coming back to your question, the kind of like simple answer to that, yeah, we are kind of a bit cluttered now in terms of a company size and the segmentation of tech, but we are looking forward to kind of like, you know, having a new one in place for the future.
Okay, thank you so much. Now let me turn to Daniel. Daniel, Think City, man, that's a great name for an organization that exactly does that. Think City, just like Urbanmetry is also like a fantastic name. Tell us more about the beginnings of Think City in Georgetown, Penang, up to building an expertise. And how would you summarize the contributions of Think City for a different Malaysia with vibrant cities and rejuvenated?
Okay, thanks for having me. So Think City is an impact organization that looks at urban regeneration and a lot of other things such as culture-based urban regeneration, etc. We are a fully owned subsidiary of Khazanah National. That said, we are not government or NGO. We are kind of in the gray area where we're able to do what we do. We started in Georgetown in 2009 when it was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There was a mandate from MOF to then see how we can preserve and protect the outstanding universal values that got it enlisted. So we started with a grants program then to enable and empower communities to participate in this whole urban regeneration effort. We did that through built environment, so conservation, restoration, creating community spaces, etc. But we also work closely in programming in terms of software of the city. So community programs, city branding exercise such as festivals or interpretation centers, museum, etc. What that has done is actually create a more exciting space at Georgetown for different how do I say this, positive impact. So that you can see in terms of culture-based economy has been developed in the last decade, from high vacancy rates to now fewer vacancy rates. You can see diverse in businesses that comes in, investment, etc. There are conversations that's happening now at the digital precinct, the city square, that's working with the MNCs in the industrial area as well. So it's very much pulling different components together and using the Georgetown as a UNESCO site, using that as a platform to catalyze a lot of this other stuff within and beyond the site. To relate to the conversation earlier, I think flow of information is something that we can talk about. So Think City has been doing this since 2009. In urban regeneration work, and in 2014, 2015, we were given the mandate to scale nationwide. So we have offices now in Georgetown, KL, and also Johor Bahru. But we do work out of these 3 offices and even regionally as well. What it has done is more than a decade of experience that has become like the individual intelligence. So the team that's been working on different cities has that experience, right? But it doesn't mean much if you don't have a collective intelligence, because Think City is made out of a dynamic team members. So we have people from urban background, so you got urban planners, architects, urban designer, but you also have people from like finance, engineers, lawyers, culture studies. So it's all about, the city is a complex combination of stuff, right? So in order to look at a complex issue, we also need to look at a combination of the team members that could look at solution differently. So I guess to relate back to what Prof was saying earlier is that there is individual experience, which is individual intelligence. And we try to put together as a collective intelligence, and then we work to come up with innovation solutions when we talk about urban regeneration, etc. And the same narration goes when you look at city level. There are different players with different experience, intelligence, etc. But the challenge today in cities or urbans, in Malaysia or even beyond, is that there's a lot of isolation. People don't come together enough, right? Sure, there's a local plan, structure plan, master plans, etc. But when it comes to initiatives, it's always isolated. So I think that's something we should talk about, and that's where data or information flow matters. How do we put it together, and then how do we reapply or redistribute that knowledge or that information?
So I think that's actually a fantastic segue to connect with the idea that you talk a lot, Silvio, which is Portugal is not a tech park. It's a local innovation system. A system, it's a set of interconnected parts that they perform certain functions and they interact in a given way. So that interaction is critical to create positive feedback loops, to create balancing loops, and that's what can take a given place and move it forward or decay. So the experience of Recife was able to revert decay, and Portugal was one of the key things, but also we had a cultural movement. We had a whole cultural movement related to Muggy Beat, which was creative artists saying that we are going to have an antenna here inside the mangrove. So it's very connected to the rest of the world, absorbing what's the knowledge out there, but reprocessing it with their own roots, with their own types of rock and roll with local influence and doing something completely new. So in a way, it came part of that. But how to have this spark of being able to connect different actors and then shape an ecosystem in how to be the convener of it. How do you see that the experience of Recife Portugal might resonate here in Malaysia?
Well, Renato, it's all, as I said, a matter of choices, right? So in the beginning, I was the guy proposing that we should have a tech park at the university. It was the most convenient way for me. I was a professor of software engineering at the largest university in terms of computer science in Brazil. It had a big campus. We had the money to build the, quote, small tech park there. But then there was this guy, Claudio Marinho, who's an urbanist, an urban engineer. He was the Secretary of State for Science and Technology. And Claudio spent the best part of 1.5 years, because I'm quite hard-headed, by the way, convincing me that we should not do something closed within the university, far away from that town. And this, he tried it several ways, and the final spark was the carnival happens here. The Recife's carnival happens exactly in the same place where Porto Digital is right now. So part of the history, the culture, the music, the, we could say, the fantasia of, kind of Disney-like of thing, the imaginary of the city, the heart of it beats over there. And that point, at that point in time, he went, for example, to show me things like the first observatory in the Americas. It's there as well. You have some of the first buildings in the Americas are in Recife downtown, and it's a walkable place. It wasn't walkable in the beginning, but we could think of making it walkable. It wasn't walkable, by the way, because of violence, sheer urban violence. It wasn't safe enough. We could think of a future that looked like the past, where people could walk there. So this spark was this combination of culture, of engineering, of people that loved the place. They felt the place was theirs. I felt the place was mine as well, but not for technology. I couldn't imagine technology being done there in the beginning. I would look say, no, I want shiny buildings like this one here. And then in the end, Claudio told me, no, we can do the same thing in old buildings and preserve them. It's in software technology and people and design and other, game, animation and filmmaking can do that because it's just people inside buildings. You don't need big machines. You don't need big anything. You need air conditioning, electricity, water, sewage works and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I started to understand the thing that if we renovated an old building and we could maintain it workable and usable for people to work within it, we wouldn't have to renovate it again. It was only a question of maintenance. And then, Renato, I think the final spark to renovate Recife city center was a phrase that I heard from Brian Spratt. He was the head of the computer laboratory at the University of Kent at Canterbury by the time I was doing a PhD there. And one day we were discussing Brazil is this thing of buildings go derelict, you rebuild them, they go derelict again. And Spratt came to me and said, "Young man, you ought to know that the only difference between barbarism and civilization is maintenance." I looked at him and said, how could be that? And he then completed it by saying, maintenance of everything, including the understanding of the world. You can't lose your understanding of the world. If you lose it, you immediately stop doing what's necessary to maintain the physicality, the workability, the livability of the world around you. And that I managed to convince a lot of people that it wasn't building new stuff. It was maintaining stuff that existed. It had to be renovated. It had to be rebuilt because most of it was derelict anyway, had decayed. But then if we could rebuild and maintain, and for example, there are buildings in Porto Digital that we rebuilt in the year 2000, and we didn't have a single intervention in that building apart from maintenance in the last 23 years. And it's still there, it's still functioning, and it will function for hundreds of years just with maintenance. So I think the incredible as it may seem, the big spark was we together, we can reimagine this place and maintain it. By doing that, we renovated over the last 23 years 170,000 square meters of old buildings. 170,000. That's a little per year. If you average it, it's something like 8,000 meters per year. That doesn't look like anything. But if you look at 50 years and we keep doing that, it's going to be kind of 500,000 square meters of historic buildings. We won the prize of the best intervention of preservation for preservation of historic buildings and places in all over Brazil twice already. By doing that with a local system of innovation. We need the buildings to put people in there. That's it. And then we go after the buildings, we renovate and maintain.
Okay. Any comments on that, or how if this is an issue in Malaysia? And
just to respond to that quickly. So you're spot on, Prof. I guess another point is that cities are the playground, right? When you talk about innovation, because talent drives innovation, creativity inspires innovation, and innovation drives growth, growth drives resilience, blah, blah, blah. It comes back to then attract talents. So as much as the refurbishing the building is important, the talent, making the city livable, attractive enough for these people to come in is as important as well. I just want to bring back to an example, using Penang example again, is that the Hin Bus Depot. So it used to be a bus depot that's been converted into like a creative hub, maybe about 8 years ago. But what the owner did was actually invest in the ecosystem before they started looking at the building regeneration. So he has been supporting the creative sector in Penang in the early years, and he spent millions and millions every year supporting programs, activities, residency program, etc. But what it does is it actually created a community, an ecosystem, which then, when it's matured enough, he moved that content into the depot, and today that place is thriving, right? And he has shifted from a very incubation kind of space to institutionalizing a lot of these small businesses. And today, even the business model conversation has changed, because now he's renting out small spaces, etc. I think occupancy rate is about 100%. He's getting more land in the surrounding area, expanding the space. Now there's an architecture firm in there. There is community space. There's many shops, F&B, etc. And there are still a lot of weekend markets that is happening. So what it does, it has multiple layers that create this, that attract talents. So you have people who are just popping up stores, to people who are graduating into smaller shops, and when they scale up, they can then move into shop house in the surrounding area or go into your bigger establishments. I think to sum up, is a combi of what you have just said, and also using this as an example. The city is very important, and urban regeneration matters because be it tech park, creative district, or whatsoever, it's all about the basic. And it's about livability, it's about something for someone to do. You know, it's exciting, it's attractive. You know, you can see yourself having a lot more than that. You choose there. And then when talents congregate, that's where ideas and innovation happen. So I think maybe we need to also think that here is that it doesn't have to be like a planning approach where it's a zoning and then everything got to go in there. I think today's world, you know, with technology, with post-COVID and all, it's all about integration. And we need to shift that thinking. And I think Porto Digital is a good example of that.
I just want to jump in because I'm getting very excited. So what, just building on what Daniel is saying, right? So, and what Professor Silvio was saying, it's really in this whole thing that you said about the command and control. So if you think about urban planning, I was trained as an urban planner, right, at MIT. If you think a concept of town planning and the concept of urban planning, it was 1800s, you know, when the Romans went to take over, like, I don't know, the entire Europe, right? And then like the roads were built, your forums the same, where you do your trading, where your temple is, where your, I don't know, monument for the invasion was put, where your deities are placed, right? So those are command and control, because I'm invading, right? And because of that worked really, really well for us, we learned it, right, over a century, over millennia. And then we come to Industrial Revolution, we're like, we're gonna make it really, really efficient by mapping everything. We're gonna map everything, we're gonna land use everything, we're gonna control. This is a residential title, you cannot do anything else. This is a 2-story building, you cannot do anything else. And I wanted to point out, Professor, your instinct, actually, when you think about, I wanted that shiny building in my tech park, in my university, you were a little bit of a victim of that thinking too, because you wanted control. You wanted to control what? What do you want to control? Cleanliness and the diversity of the software that you input into that building. And that's what you're satisfying. It is not the shiny building. It is not the auditoriums. It's not the classroom and the aircon and all those modern facilities. You wanted control of the software, of the kind of people who was going to inhabit. And you couldn't imagine that modern inhabitants to mix with the diversity that you had in an old model. And it's exactly what in Malaysia, unfortunately, I hope nobody gonna catch me and put me in jail, but
We are live
okay.
at Bernama in Nastro.
Okay.
I'm joking.
So it is what we fell victim to. We did not like the messiness and the chaos of Kuala Lumpur city. It was flooding, da da da. So we decided, hey, we're just going to build a brand new one and move everybody there, right? So what do we lose? What do we lose when we do that? So which comes to my second point, right? So a lot of people think tech companies. What does tech company want? Does anybody want to try? Professor, what is the first thing that you think technology company wants? Convenience. Anybody else? Data. Data, I augment it. Fiber cables. The first thing when I talk to property developers, they say, I need a, I don't know, 5G telco fiber cable to get the data there, right? No. I've run a tech company for the last 8 years. The only thing that tech company wants is good food.
And imagination.
Because without good food, your staff doesn't want to come to work. So when you map out where your offices are, you need to know how they're going to have their lunch, what are the options they have, and are they going to be happy doing that instead of they go, I want to hybrid work, I want to remote work from home and stay there because my wife's cooking is better, right?
Can I add something?
Sure.
Right in the middle of your speech, one of the main arguments that Claudio Marinho, the Secretary of State for Science and Technology, used to convince me to go downtown instead of the university was exactly this. He invited me to lunch around the university, and we spent a lot of time looking for a single decent, it wasn't good, decent restaurant. And then he said, "You don't have any place to eat here. Let's go for a place where there are restaurants."
Where we can
Absolutely right.
actually have a conversation around good food
Absolutely.
and etc., right? So the third point I wanted to make is, so let's make it a little bit more digital, software engineering, right? The reason this is the case, why Porto Digital did so well, is because the engine they were using is a human intelligence, right? So what's the input? The input is data. So when the human is getting the input of data to come up with imagination, to come up with innovations, they get it from their surrounding. So when they're walking, with all the things that you talk about, carnival, the atmosphere, the good food, the conversations, the people you meet down the streets, those are data points. And if you strip them of these data points, they become less intelligent. So your AI, your human intelligence, is lower because the data points that you have to process becomes lower. So you put them into the bubble of the car, you ship them for 40 minutes into, that's why San Francisco works and LA doesn't work. Because you put them in the car, they go into a little bubble, they arrive, and all the data points they have is whatever they find online and whatever they can process online, which is an augmented subset of whatever intelligence and culture. And that is why a place like Georgetown is amazing. You walk down and you have data points of who? Your clients. The product that you build as a tech company needs clients, it needs customers. And what better way to gather that data than being in there every day? So those are the three things I'm trying to relate back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Prof, if I may, so in response to what Prof Silvio mentioned just now, when we talk about the maintenance mindset and culture, so I think, at least from MRANTI's side, we have learned it through the hard way, right? It is an old park, we have to rejuvenate the whole thing, and when we came in 2 years ago, we inherited, old buildings. Right. So now, for us to move forward, we need to spend hundreds of millions to make good of the buildings, infrastructure, utilities, water, power, all the basic needs, right? So, but again, I think that's the easiest part of all. Engineering, design, easy. But throughout the planning process, we learn this. We are dealing with a totally different set of people, tech geeks. They are not like you and me, they are just different. They work 24/7. They have this kind of like, I don't care mentality. We built something here and here for them to walk through. This is going to be your kind of like, this is going to be the kiosks, the shops. They don't care. They just kind of find their own space to work, all right? And they have their own kind of like culture kind of thingy, because they comprise of young people and stuff. They have weird things that they do. So now we are coming back to the drawing board, right? So because we are so used to the conventional way of design things, like we design residential, commercial, office, but now we're designing a tech park. So learning from Porto Digital. So because you embark on this kind of like refurbishment project 20 years ago, right? Sustainability-wise, what did you plan last time, all right, in kind of like putting the vision towards the future, all right? Maintenance-wise, dealing with all these people and the changes, the ever-changing kind of like things that we're going to have in tech and innovation. So I'm really, really curious on how Porto Digital kind of like, putting things in drawing board 20 years ago, in making Porto Digital such a success story now.
Look, let's go back to what you said, combined with what you said. Recife is a messy city, right? It's in the tropics. It's the most unequal of all Brazilian capitals, the most unequal. Even today, even 20 years later, our impact of 5 billion ringgit per year is just a drop in the ocean of inequality. We have changed the lives of maybe 100,000 people. It's basically 20,000 people working there, plus the collaterals, but that's less than maybe 8% of the whole population of the city. We still have a lot of things to do. But now, for example, the region of Porto Digital is walkable again. You don't have to keep your cell phone hidden. You exit the building and you keep the conversation going on. You can carry a backpack that has a 10,000 ringgit, laptop in it without fear that you're going to be assaulted somewhere and they're going to take it from you. This is a huge agreement. When we entered the region, it was the main center of drug trafficking for Recife. So the island was dominated by literally a gang of drug trafficking. And we had to go there and say, look, we are arriving here and we're going to change the whole place. It's going to take time, so you have two options. Either you help us or you help us. There's two options you have. Just two. And we were talking to armed people, that were out of the reach of the forces of law and justice. In Brazil, you have these enclaves, mostly famous of them. The most famous of them are in Rio de Janeiro, where the police has to ask permission to enter the region. So it's completely outside state control, right? And this enclave in Recife was exactly that. It took us 10 years, basically from 2000 to 2010, for the sons and daughters of those people to start going to school. We started the school for young people, and it had no students. And they said, oh, we don't nothing to do with that. We are going to keep our business as usual going on here. Right now, most of the students, most of the sons and daughters of that enclave have gone through university and became designers, coders, lawyers, whatever. We just universalized that piece of the city to the point that every single person from that region that wants to go through university, if they are accepted, we have a scholarship paid for by the businesses at Porto Digital. That's not a cleansing, it's a mixing. We are becoming part of them, they are becoming part of us, and we are designing together a future for everybody. So it's not go away because you were kind of dirty, it's come with us because we're going to be together in the future. So, but if you go there, you say, well, that square is not properly maintained to this date. Right, but if you went back 10 years ago, there wasn't a square there, right? Not even that. So it took us the best part of maybe 100 years to get to the state where the place was useless. It's going to take us many, many, many decades for it to be something else, not in the past, but in the future, that we love it back again at all times. We have this kind of love and hate relationship with most parts of Recife, including Porto Digital. So, for example, if you go there and say, oh, this building, we have to do something about it. But then we have done 170,000 square meters already, right? So we can't do everything at the same time. You have to take time, 50 years. We have a 50-year plan. And I'm sure that people after myself and after the people that are doing that today, they have to have their 50-year plan as well. And the best part of it is that community is doing it. Government is part of it. And it pumps money in. But it's not government that's doing. In Brazil, at least, that's not sustainable. It's the community at Porto Digital. The people that live there, the people that work there, the people that invest there, have businesses there, restaurants, pousadas, hotels. We are now building a huge convention center, and so on and so forth in old, sugar warehouses and stuff like that. We are rebuilding inside where the place was. We're not building anything new. There's nothing new being built there. It's what did we have here before? We are going to retrofit for the future. It's a future fit of something. And I hope, people ask me, is that, have you finished doing it? Cities are only finished when they cease to exist. The data point kind of flow you were talking about. Is it finished? Nobody lives there anymore. Because it couldn't be. And it's got to have a level of chaos, of disarray, of dirtiness that's proper of human beings. Usually, if you go back enough in time, we wouldn't be wearing anything here right now, right? So this is a manufactured reality that we are living through right now. And cities are part of that reality that we manufacture. If we control them all, it's unfit for people.
Okay, let's have some questions from the audience, please. We have microphones in the middle. You can come there. And please introduce yourself and ask the question. If we can have joining over there.
Hi, good morning. Firstly, thank you for articulating, all the different views. And I looked in this room. I thought I was the oldest. But then I Googled Professor Silvio, who is 2 years older, 2nd February 1955. For me, I was born in KL. I've seen how KL has grown. I used to cycle as a schoolboy in Jalan Nampang. I've cycled from my late father's house, which is just close by, when there was no parliament, to go to the museum during the holidays, simply because there was free air conditioning. And my bicycle was left outside, it was never stolen. But every now and then, my wife and I, because we are empty nesters, we play this game in our head. Living in the city now, it's different. And you talked about flooding, all kinds of things, and the quality of life and the work-life balance. For me, there is now life more than work. So we look at Georgetown. I love Georgetown because I could park my car at the hotel. I just walk. And if I was a techie, it's good because there's good laksa. All F&B is all close by. I have been to Technology Park, when it was Technology Park, when I used to visit Jaring. Jaring's office, because I had problems with my modem, dialing up 14.4, and then I saw Professor Silvia. You mentioned Mark Anderson, and then there was Netscape, and I think I did mention every time there was Netscape to be upgraded or updated, it takes me sometimes 24 hours because Jaring line will break. But I think it's nice when you talk about building the digital economy through urban rejuvenation for the young. But I think you must also consider people like us who have helped build us get this far. We should not be neglected, And I think maybe for you, maybe not the rest of the audience, you're aware of the concept of the blue zone. There are 5 blue zones in the world, where the word octogenarian lives, and they live very healthy and very good lives. So I think one of the things also you have to do is to balance the need for, to me, age is a perception. I'm 66. I'm not old. I'm just older than some people in this room. Because I think, it's a state of mind. If you want to be old, you can be old. You want to be young, you can be young. But I think what's important also, I think more so for Khairil MRANTI, because as I said, I used to visit there. I used to visit companies. Problem was food. The big companies have their own canteen, but it's boring. The other thing is to get there. You have to drive. And I remember the UPIT students, you know, they had to walk from public transport. There is no, the logistics and transport was not there. So I think I'm glad I was invited to attend. So I am not really posing a question, but the challenge to the panel, don't forget people like us who help us get this far, you know, and so in the sense that, what you call it, you know, maybe just have a chat. What are your comments on this? Because to me, that blue zone, people are now looking. And I know Thailand is looking at one in Hua Hin. You know, so if that happens, then you get people like me. I'm not saying I want to move to Hua Hin, but the golf is good. Yeah? So, but I think these are things, this is future challenges. So Georgetown is somewhere on my mind. You have the UNESCO, you have the biosphere. Weather is nice, but then you get worried because the capacity now, when you have the, what you call it, the cable cars they're planning to, whether the hill can take that capacity. So just a general, you know, comments from the panel members. Thank you.
Thank you. We also, please.
Let me just comment, Professor. I think age. Oh, yeah. You are an old professor like myself. Professors are life professors and not necessarily a title at the university. But what you're saying basically is that age is a state of mind. It's not a state of body, apart from the pain in our joints, right? I suffer from that. I have been suffering from that for years. But I think even as we think about technology and stuff like that, I was saying in a debate yesterday night here at the school, when you look at data from entrepreneurial firms in the United States, which is the place that has more data for that, you're going to find out that successful companies out of a study that considers 2.5 million new companies in the United States from 2004 to 2017, the successful companies have an entrepreneur that has a median age of 40 years old. So it's not young techies that build successful companies. And if you look at the companies that whose growth was faster, the median age of the entrepreneur was 42 years old. And that company probably is going to reach its prime time when the entrepreneur is 60. So we have to change this mindset of, quote, young people building tech companies, because tech, as we know it, has been here for a quarter of a century. So the young people that were building tech stuff when the internet came about, and they were 40, like myself, they are nearly 70 these days. And we haven't been wasted from, you know, over the last few years. And I think there is quite a lot of stuff that we can contribute to build, to design, to redesign, to reuse, to re-understand, especially now that we have this AI revolution around us that's going to change everything all over again, even more so because as I tried to show, it's going to reinforce major forces that were already changing everything. My special point of view is that we are going to need everybody. There's not enough people on Earth to actually do what needs to be done in whatever facet of society you think you have to take care of, from health to education to security to whatever. We need everything, everybody, everywhere.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have, I guess it's going to be one last question because we are pretty short of time, so.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present this question. My name is Tren Ming. I come from Wawasan Open University. It's a private university with its main campus in the heart of Georgetown, Penang. About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel quite a lot to Brazil. We were actually, in my past life, we were working on a master plan for a new innovation zone in the city of Curitiba, Paraná. And what I always recall is our partners from the Agência Paraná de Desenvolvimento asking us to take a look at Porto Digital in Recife as a benchmark, as a model. Unfortunately, I've never had the chance to visit Porto Digital, but I've had the opportunity to read quite a number of case studies on this amazing project. My question is this: when you reflect on the Porto Digital experience over the past 20 years, what are some of the things that you would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight and being able to reflect on it 20 years down the road? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You were invited to visit Recife as soon as you can. We're going to be very happy to have you there. I think with hindsight, one of the things I would have done personally, and I think all of us together, is related to the situation that the entire island of Recife Center is protected by the National Trust of Historical and city protection. In the beginning, we thought that was a curse. We thought that was a problem. And then in 2014, the Minister for Innovation of Argentina asked for a meeting with us at Porto Digital. And he wanted to know why Porto Digital had succeeded that far and the region around Puerto Madero had collapsed. And I didn't know that. I didn't have any idea of the whys of it. And we've learned from him. We started to explain how we did work, and our major problem in the first 10 to 15 years of Porto Digital was dealing with the National Trust. They didn't allow us to change anything whatsoever in any of the buildings. Nothing at all. And in Argentina, the National Trust protected some warehouses, some historical houses, and allowed real estate to raise all the rest to the ground to build skyscrapers. The first one was Oracle's. The second one was a Hilton Hotel. The third one was Microsoft's. The fourth one, I think it was McKinsey's. And those skyscrapers sent rent, of course, up to the sky as well. And that destroyed the whole network of startups and young companies that were being built in the region, and left only the very posh tourist restaurants and destroyed the entire ecosystem. And the Minister of Argentina told that to me after he went around Porto Digital and saw that there were, very tiny, very cheap restaurants as well as very posh, very expensive restaurants. And he said, "Your blessing is the National Trust." And I had spent 14 years battling them, trying to change things faster. I wanted to do, and we wanted to do everything in a faster way. They'd say, "No, you have to come here and discuss, floor by floor in detail, how you're going to do it, which kind of wood you are going to use it." And in the end, around 2 years after that, in 2016, we had the best partnership of renovation and preservation and maintenance of historic areas in Brazil. That's the thing I would have done differently. So if I were here, for example, in Kuala Lumpur, and I don't know how the National Trust here works for historical buildings and historical cities, I would say, okay, freeze Chinatown, together with all the buildings that are there at the moment. I'm staying at the House Hotel right in the middle of Chinatown, okay? Freeze it, and let's use the whole region to start a local system of innovation. Doesn't need to be for software, could be for filmmaking. My hotel has been occupied by a film crew for the last two days, and I'm seeing all the hustle out there, and it's fantastic. I'm asking who the actors are, and so on and so forth. And I'm asking for a piece of action in the film as well. Maybe. This foreigner came here and he's part of the film. Right? So And I'll do something like that, you know, exactly in the same chaotic way that it is, and I like it very much. It looks like the situation in Porto Digital right now, you know, we have places like the Elsa Hotel and places like the, you know, the Curb food provider out there. So I would do something like that here, and I would ask the National Trust to come with me and say, help me to renovate and keep the spirit of this place as it is without moving anybody out of here to bring the software people, for example, or the filmmakers or the gamers or whatever it was.
Okay.
That would be it.
So as we are actually already beyond time, let me ask for final thoughts, so concluding remarks, and I will start with Daniel, then Khairil and Cha-ly, and then Silvio. Please, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. I think just to respond, Prof, to the point is, in Malaysia, there are policies in place, and they're good policies. For example, KL, heritage buildings are listed and meant to be preserved. Heritage traits are listed, meant to be preserved. But, you know, translating policies to action is a separate conversation we can have. I think that's a challenge we all agree here. That's one. Second point is, I think, sir, your mention about Georgetown as being a good aspiration. I think Sabah, I think KL is heading towards there. We have a program here, Kuala Lumpur Creative and Culture District, and we are working towards that. So making sure there's walkability, making sure there are enough content that goes around, celebrating the existing fabric, culture, heritage, etc. And hopefully that will actually attract the creative and culture industries to come in, invest, and, you know, build up the community, etc. That takes time. I'm not sure in the next few years or in the next decade, but we'll get there eventually. I think last point, I would like to circle back to Khairil on your challenges at the industrial park, the tech park. I think, so in Think City we do a lot of placemaking. I think if I may, it's about, when we tend to think that the best design, the best reference, and then we try to impose it on wherever we are, right? Not necessarily just tech park, in cities, etc. But what placemaking does is a process. I think what we need to do is really understand who are we designing for, who are we designing it with, and who is actually going to use it. A lot of times we tend to forget that instead of understanding how people want to use it and then design for that, we are imposing to shape behavior through the design that we are imposing onto them. So that's where placemaking, nothing new in global or in Malaysia, but we are talking a lot about process, and that should be incorporated into planning, policies, etc. That the process in developing public spaces or important congregation points, it needs to go through a process where we understand cultural mapping is important. We understand what is that space, what was in that place, what's that place for, who's going to use it, how we're going to design together. Because at the end of the day, that's where they will own it, they will use it, how they have designed it, part of the design process, and they will take ownership. And that's where you talk about maintenance. That reduces the burden of maintenance on city managers because they also take ownership of that. So I think it's just something to think about, but that's what we do within the cities that we're working in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Please, Khairil.
Yeah, a short one. So I think one of the key takeaways that I could kind of like conclude today based on our discussion and debates that we have throughout for the past, I think, 1.5 hours, would be urban rejuvenation, or in this context, in tech park development. It is beyond design and beyond physical. I think all of us heard that, how Porto Digital kind of convenes different stakeholders, government, the community, the people, even the drug cartel, to work together to make things happen. So I think what's happening here, right? So we tend to look at the physical side of it, the beauty part of it, how tall the building is, right? How big can you build? But it is actually beyond that. We should look at the people, at the community, and how the urban structure, the urban fabric works. Yeah, I think that would be one of the key takeaways that, kind of like big lesson learned that I'm going to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Cha-ly?
Yeah, my closing thoughts is that I always tell my team that, because our mission is to build better cities, like at Urbanmetry, and the reason, and what 90% of my colleagues are software engineers and like tech guys, right? So they live in the metaverse, but I always remind them that the city is actually humans' first social platform, if you think about it, right? So that is our version of a platform that can be programmed. I remember what you said. And also there's a social element to it. So, and that's why it is quite important for us to maintain that. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Silvio?
I can probably say, Cha-ly, that the city is a phygital platform. Some of the flows in the city are physical, purely physical. You know, people walking in the streets, in the sidewalks, without looking at ways to see whether there is traffic in front of them, and not looking for anything, you know, immediately just strolling. I think this notion of platforms, if we reason about the world around us in terms of platforms as infrastructures and services with a certain kind of governance on top of which we can build apps. A house is an app on top of the infrastructure and services of the city, and there are rules for you to run it. And then if you go to the other more abstract levels of the city, you're going to see that there are infrastructures and services at other levels or in other dimensions that are more or less virtual that actually can redesign not the city only, but our understanding of what living has become to be in the 21st century. If we change that understanding, we could potentially live anywhere that interests us. Like I say in Recife, people said, can you work from anywhere? And I say, well, theoretically, yes. But for me, I will work from anywhere where Quina do Futuro, which is the best restaurant, Japanese restaurant in Brazil, can deliver. You know, and that limits basically to a radius of 2 kilometers around Quina do Futuro and nowhere else. So this is the city for me. It has to have that there. And having said that, I would to thank you all and Renato and all of the school for having me here this week. I'm still here tomorrow, so if you want to meet me, just ask people from CTSS where I am. And it was great to be with you today. Thank you.
Fantastic. On behalf of ASB and CTSS, and also with a lot of thanks to all our leadership, including our President and Dean, Sanjay Sharma, our Deputy CEO, Joe Cherian, our fantastic Deputy Dean, Abigail Tay, and the overall leadership of the school. It has been a great honor to host you this week. And as you get to know more about Malaysia, about Southeast Asia, about ASEAN, I hope we build a really long bridge, but with good connection, so we can bring more of Malaysians to learn from the experience of Brazil, and also bring other Brazilians in that kind of exchange, the South-to-South cooperation, emerging markets connection, with all the challenges that we have and that we can learn from. I think that's very fruitful, and it's aligned with the vision of Asia School of Business and of the CTSS, our research center. So with that, thank you so much, and please stay connected, reach out to us. We have our social networks as well. Do like our LinkedIn page, Instagram, and all of that, so you will hear more about us. Do we have there? Yes, and share the feedback. yes, share the feedback with us about this event so we can prepare more. And if there's anything to fix, we are always in the business of continuous improvement. So with that, thank you all. It's been a great pleasure.